Hey friends, Peggy Hall back with you from thehealthyamerican.org. I realize I have a little typo in the title of this video. It says Newsom sings stunning new bang bang law. And I guess that probably is more accurate. And I meant for it to say that he signs. And I'm going to tell you all about that, about the difference between what's going on in California and other states. And then I want to take you on a little brief journey in terms of my thinking. A couple of decades ago when I was in my early adulthood, let me just fix this. There we are. That typo. Newsom signs stunning bang bang law. And I want to see maybe some of you felt the same way that I did. And then I want to take you through the thinking, which I think a lot of people are thinking. All right, if that makes sense, let me know in a comment below. We are going to be looking at this law. We're going to be briefly contrasting it with what's going on in Florida and Texas. And then also, I want you to, well, let's just do this. I'm going to share my screen and I've got something geared up for you right here. I really like this meme that came from Newsom's. I like to call him Newsom. It's just my little nickname. I know some of you have other nicknames for him as well. This was on his Twitter page that somebody posted. Hold on, guys. Let me check the laws first. Yeah, right. That's one of the problems is the bad guys don't really follow the law. Friends, we are going to look at that law, and I would say that Newsom is probably glad that I've been turning my attention toward Joshy, Green New Deal over there on the islands, because it's taken my attention away from Newsom. And I know that I rattle his cage. I know that he has people in his administration that watch my videos because he's made some changes based on what I've been saying over the last few years regarding he doesn't have the authority to issue law. And he finally admitted that at one point, and that's just one among others. He sends his attorneys to watch my lawsuit against the county. They show up and watch. So I know that I'm on his radar, and I'm about to pop up on the radar again when I break down exactly what he's doing. I hope that you caught my long form interview with my attorney, Nicole Pearson, and she is really doing a lot of great work in the state of California, fighting against these egregious bills. And we just had a veto by Newsom against a bill that was going to basically give more power to the, I don't like to call it affirmation, it's more the denial of reality for these children if they are in custody debates. Please watch that video. You'll know exactly what I'm talking about. Now, this is a sponsored video, so give me a moment, and I want to take you on over the website. I know that I've got it geared up for you right here. And that is Gut Cleanse Protocol. How do you like that? .com with Peggy. If you are concerned, in fact, I've got a message for you. So if this is something that is of interest to you related to digestive issues, those are often caused by a potential toxin that's in a lot of those healthy foods that scientists have been telling us to eat with that fraudulent food pyramid, for the longest time. This potential toxin causes digestive issues, according to Dr. Gundry, a world-renowned cardiologist. And just by the way, off the record, all right, kind of going off script here, you need to research this doctor because he actually was being criticized for talking about the side effects of the cocktails. So just wanted to throw that out there. Now, warning signs that come related to digestive issues include weight gain and fatigue and digestive discomfort and stiff joints and even skin problems. So Dr. Gundry explains all of these side effects are often mistaken for normal signs of aging because digestive issues develop usually over a matter of years and sometimes even decades. So I want you to go to gutcleanseprotocol.com/Peggy. That's where you can watch this free video. And I can assure you that the damage that you're experiencing probably was caused by these health foods, and it's far from normal. So the good news is that you can easily fix these problems from your own home. It's very simple. You just need to know which foods are actually healthy, which contain this hidden potential toxin. So here you go. Find it out for yourself. Gutcleanseprotocol.com. I will have a link for you in the description box below. And again, this is a free informative video that you can watch. It's been released to the public, and you can learn exactly which foods you need to avoid. All right. We need to avoid some of these horrible laws that Newsom is signing, the bills that he is signing into law. Remember, the governor cannot make a law, but he signs the bills into law. And then he can also veto these bills as he did recently. So let me take you right on over to this headline. And here we go. Share my screen. California Governor Newsom signs law raising taxes on the bang bangs and ammunition to pay for school safety. So this is the headline. And why don't we do this, friends? Let me start out with my own story about my view on the bang bangs. In our mainstream media merry-go-round, they refer to criminal acts where people have used these bang bangs. They call it, I'm just going to say it. We'll see if YouTube lets the video stay. They call it gun violence, as if the gun was the perpetrator, as if that weapon was the actor, was the bad guy. Okay. It's a weapon, and anything can be a weapon, a brick, a hammer, a butter knife. Apparently, if you're flying in a jet, a box cutter, right? Yeah, I talked about that previously, my own 9/11 story. So anything can be a weapon, but they demonize these bang bangs because it can be a very emotionally charged topic. And let me tell you my own personal story. Maybe we share some things in common. So I actually jotted this down so I would have my notes. And this is going to be in an upcoming Substack that I hope you will get on. It's absolutely free. And this is where I send out a couple of blog posts a week right to your email. And I do a little bit more of a deep dive on some of these topics that I cover in videos. So the problem with gun control, I'll just say it like I see it here, is it's not about the guns. All right. Back in my early adulthood, I thought that gun control was a good idea, a really good idea. I mean, who wouldn't want to live in a safe community where you didn't have to worry about being caught in some kind of gang-related shooting, or being held up at the local bank, or being robbed while being held up at gunpoint, or even worse? All that had to be done really would be to make it illegal for people to have guns, right? What a concept. After all, it's the bang bangs that are the problem, right? It's not the criminals, it's the bang bangs. So while we're at it, why don't we make murder and rape and robbery and all of those other heinous acts, why don't we make those illegal as well? What's that you say? Oh, they already are criminal acts? Well, aren't those laws working? What's that you say? Oh, the Second Amendment. We need to talk about the Second Amendment. Of course, the Second Amendment always gets in the way of these gun control laws. The Second Amendment, which is your right to bear arms, your right to defend yourself, your right to protect your family and your property. Those rights which are guaranteed and protected, should be guaranteed and protected by law. And the Bill of Rights, which the 10 bills in the Bill of Rights created there have been 27 so far constitutional amendments. I'm going to share that with you in just a moment. What's that you say? Doesn't the Second Amendment just relate to, the military being able to have the bang bangs? In other words, you're telling me that the government can have the bang bangs, but you, the citizen or the free person, cannot? That's how it goes? Wait a minute there. This is where my own thinking started to change. Because in my early adulthood, I was swept up in this rhetoric of we want to live in safe neighborhoods. And back in the day, I never really had a TV, but you couldn't help, you go to the nail salon, you're going to a restaurant, you're going to the gym, the TVs are on, the news is on, go to visit my parents, they have the news on. So I would hear these things. And I actually used to read the newspaper back in the day until I realized all of the stories that were planted there to elicit an emotional response so that I would live in fear. I don't know if I ever mentioned this frequently on this channel, but I actually lived in the city of Los Angeles for a very brief period of time in my early adulthood. I was there for about 6 months. And at that period of time, the news, radio, TV, newspapers were just filled with these horrible stories of violence and people being killed in these, drive-by incidents and just whatever would happen. I literally was living in fear. I thought that I was going to be gunned down just standing on a street corner, on Westwood Boulevard in West LA, which is a pretty safe place. At least it used to be. There are so many other issues that are related to violence and other things that are topics for another day. But the point is, I allowed my emotional response to drive my attitudes and opinions about these bang bangs. And I thought, I think we should have really strict laws about this. I don't think people should be allowed to have them. Why do they need them? If nobody had one, we would all be safe. This was my thinking, several decades ago. And when you kind of think about it that way, it makes sense from one point of view that if nobody has them, we would all be safe. And we were even told, for example, yes, in England, even the law enforcement doesn't have the bang bangs. They just have billy clubs so they can beat you up with their club, but they don't have the bang bangs. I'm like, well, they still have a weapon and it still is violent and it still can be fatal. So I started to think about this greater picture. So some of these questions that I have in my little write-up here are the questions that I started to ask myself. Like, well, wait a minute. What if I do want to protect myself? What if somebody in my family wants to protect me and our home and our property from a bad guy trying to break in? Why should only the bad guys have the bang bangs and not the law-abiding citizens? So that was one step that I took in terms of developing my view and my opinion about the bang bangs. And I thought, that's a really good point. And I wasn't as educated on the current laws, and they've changed over the years, and they continue to change very quickly in terms of permits and how many you can have and how much they cost. And the waiting period in California has the strictest laws, probably right next to New York and California have the strictest laws related to these bang bangs. And I wasn't that well versed in it, but the overall attitude I had was, it would be great to live in a world without the bang bangs. Well, it would be great to live in a world without criminals, but I don't think that's going to happen because there is evil, and there are people, for whatever reason, probably something in their childhood where they had horrible things happen to them, and they grew up in a way that they thought violence was the answer, and that stealing from other people was okay because they had something that they wanted. So there are so many other important elements here. It's not just getting rid of the bang bangs. That's only one weapon that the criminals will use. So I started thinking about that. Are the criminals going to follow the law? I don't think so. They don't so far. That's what I was so struck by during the last 3 years of the hog washing with the cooties and all of that. And they said, all of the mass, violent bang bang events have really reduced over these years. Oh, because the criminals decided to follow the law and stay home and cover their face? I mean, the whole thing was just ridiculous to me. No, it's because they didn't orchestrate these events and put them in the news. That's why, in my opinion. So going back to my own thinking and how it developed over time, then I started to think about the Second Amendment. And the Second Amendment, often we are told, well, that means that the militia, and I'm going to show you the Second Amendment in just a moment, that means that militias can have the arms, not necessarily the people. So you're telling me, this is where my thinking went, you're telling me that criminals will follow these stricter bang bang laws. They're not going to try to get the bang bangs in some underhanded way where they're stolen or black market. They're just going to go along with the laws, even though they violate the other laws. And that started to get me thinking. And then what really got me was when I started thinking about Germany, and somebody close to me was explaining and reminding me about history. And we only need to look at World War II. There have been many countries that have followed this pattern, but in Germany, they disarmed the population prior to World War II. So you're telling me that had nothing to do with the ability of the government to do what they did, whether or not you believe, and I know there are a lot of questions as to what we were told about that war, what is right, what is accurate, what was orchestrated. I get that. But let's just go on the bigger picture that the Germans, the German population was disarmed, notably the Jewish population. So let me see if I've got that. I made a couple of notes here. So prior to I'll just say the Socialist Party coming to power, so I don't trip the algorithm, all of the Germans had to register their bang-bangs. Prior to that, you just had them, you owned them. You didn't register it. Think about it now. You have to register your car, you have to register your boat. If you have a dog or a cat, you're supposed to register them with either your police department, however it's set up in your local municipality. You're supposed to have a license on them. I'm not going to speak openly about what I do with my animals on this channel, but I know there are many people that don't do that. But the idea that the government knows what you have. So this started, well, it's almost 100 years ago, right? Give or take a decade or two. Because in 1933, so just shy of a decade of 100 years ago, that's when the socialists came to power in Germany. And the head of I'll just say a top dog in that party decreed, right? Just decreed that having these bang-bangs, if a Jewish citizen had a bang-bang, that was punishable by 20 years in a concentration camp. So 20,000, according to my research, and again, I don't know how accurate this is, but just looking at the bigger picture, that 20,000 Jewish men were incarcerated. And so people either went and they willingly gave up their bang-bangs to the police department, or they had their houses ransacked. How did the government know? Because they were registered. So right now, if you have a bang-bang legally, the government knows in your state that you have it. So this was not always the case. And we're going to look at how this ratchets up. So similar tactics were used in Stalin's Russia, similar tactics in Pol Pot's Cambodia, where the people were slaughtered, all right, millions and millions of people. Idi Amin in Uganda, no guns, no bang-bangs there either. How about Castro, Cuba, right? Castro's Cuba. People fleeing Cuba, coming to the United States because of that type of government. And at first, many people don't know this, Castro said, everybody should have one. Well, it'd be much safer if every citizen has a bang-bang. I personally tend to fall into that category now. Maybe not, 100% of each individual has to have one. There are some people that are ethically and morally opposed to having any violent weapon. I understand that. But generally speaking, when we look at, I'm going to share with you a country where that does exist and how safe it is. So we look at Cuba. Castro completely changed his tune once he came into power. And he said, I have a different idea. How about nobody has them except for the government? And that's exactly what happened. How about Venezuela? How do you like them apples? Them are probably the rottenest apples in our time. So Hugo Chavez, same thing, stripped the people of their right to have their bang-bangs. And you know what's going on there. And then, of course, China under Mao. Yes, the very same Mao that the big zero, I think he goes by the name Abomination, used to have like the Mao Christmas ornaments and shirts and all that kind of very strange, like it was an idol for some of these socialists in our country. Mao is quoted to say, all political power comes from the barrel of a bang-bang. The Communist Party must command all of the bang-bangs. That way, no bang-bangs can ever be used to command the party. Again, I don't know if that's true or not, but it is a quote that I saw. So he was the founder. He's the one that brought in communism into China. All right, I did a video, which I can link for you after this, all about the political system in China. And I think it's very, very interesting when you study that history and you see what happened. So his first act after gaining complete control of China in 1949, not that long ago, was to take away all the bang-bangs. It was a policy that he began as he took over each rural province. Anybody that was found with the bang-bang was executed. So millions and tens of millions of Chinese died as a result of this. His repeated merciless attempts to create a socialist China. And so, the history probably people were executed and imprisoned, forced famine. There's a really great book called Life and Death in Shanghai. I highly recommend that you read it. It was written by a woman in our lifetime. I think she recently passed away. It's her first person story. It's absolutely riveting. That should be required reading in every public school and private school and homeschool, Life and Death in Shanghai. So Mao killed more people than either Stalin or we'll just call him H, the H in Germany during World War II. And it all began after he took away the bang bangs. So dictators throughout history have disarmed the populations before they began their mass killings. So that doesn't sound like a very good recipe to me. So what's happening in the United States is incrementalism. They can't just go in and confiscate the bang bangs, although they would like to do so. I think they did that in the aftermath of Katrina in New Orleans, where they said, we're under martial law. We want everybody to come and turn in their bang bangs just for safekeeping. We'll return them to you later. And people went along with it, just like people went along with suffocating themselves and having a nasal assault. I call it from the nasal swab, or even worse, becoming a human pincushion, because they were living in fear and they also thought that it was a requirement. So let me pose something to you a little differently. What if the bang bangs were as ubiquitous as cars? What if everybody had one, or nearly everybody did? What if everyone learned how to use one to defend themselves, to defend their family, to defend their property? How might that change the brazenness of criminals if these criminals didn't know whether or not you were armed, or any intended victim was armed or would be able to defend themselves? Well, I'll tell you how that turns out. Because in the small country of Switzerland, where the information that I researched, one out of every three people have these bang bangs. Now, in Switzerland, there is a compulsory service in their military. So everyone that goes in, if they're able-bodied, is taught how to use these weapons. And after they are discharged from the army, they actually can keep those weapons for a period of years. So that's how this is estimated, that 1/3 of the population basically is armed. Now, I don't know if they carry them around on their person, if they're just at home. And that country is among the lowest incidents of crimes where these bang bangs are used. So I find that very, very compelling. All right. Having said that, let me tell you exactly what happened in California. And I want to look at your comments about your position on this. And actually, I think the very first thing that we should do is, why don't we just look at the actual Second Amendment? I want to grab that for you here. And then we will look at, so let me share my screen again for you here, friends, and cue this up for you. We are going to be looking at a comment from Newsom. This came from his Twitter page, and it said, California, and this is a little bit separate, because this was a good measure that happened with a federal court. So California's high capacity magazine ban was just struck down by Judge Benitez. Now, this is Newsom speaking, saying that he's an extremist right-wing zealot with no regard to human life. Hang on a second, Newsom. Excuse me, Newsom. Is somebody impersonating your account? Because aren't you the one that has no regard for human life? Aren't you the one that insisted and signed a bill into law saying that killing a developing baby in the womb is a constitutional right? Yeah, that was you, Newsom. You're the governor of California, and you were fighting for that constitutional amendment, saying that it was a right for a mother to kill her developing baby in the womb. And now you're saying that this judge has no regard for human life. I think you need some psychological care. I really do. Let me share my screen again, and we'll see more of your hogwash here. But you're not an extremist, not at all. No, you're not an extremist left-wing zealot with no regard for human life. Then he says, wake up, America. Our bang bang safety laws will continue to be thrown out by NRA-owned federal judges until we pass a constitutional amendment to protect our kids, baby goats, right? Children, and end the the bang bang violence epidemic in America. No, it's criminal activity. Get your adjectives and verbs right there, Gavi. All right, here's the Second Amendment. He really needs to learn how to read. The Second Amendment, along with the Bill of Rights, there were 10 amendments to the Constitution. Later, over the years, more were added until we're up to 27. But the Bill of Rights is considered that's what we're talking about, the constitutional amendments. The Second Amendment was passed by Congress. Isn't that interesting? September 25th. I'm recording today, September 27th. This was 1789. It was ratified 1791. It became law, and this is what it says. And I did some definitions for you. A well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. There's something I want to draw your attention to before we look at the definition. As an English teacher, I would have put a conjunction. I would have put, instead of a comma here, I would have put the word and. A well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state and being necessary to the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. I don't know if this was a grammatical error. I don't know if it was just the vernacular that was used back in 1789, but this is part of the stumbling block for some people who are saying that are giving a different definition of this amendment. So let's look at the definitions, shall we? Well-regulated, all right? Regulated means maintained. Now, some might argue that it means regulated in terms of rules and laws and so forth, but it does carry the definition of meaning that it's well-maintained, right? So that's pretty clear. Militia can be defined as able-bodied citizens. We know necessary. I want to look at the word right, the right of the people to keep and bear arms. Right, a right is a moral and legal entitlement. And it's kind of, an entitlement is a right. So it means that this is something that you get that cannot legally be taken from you or even given up, because it is an inherent right that you are born with. You have the right to protect yourself. You have the right to life. You have the right to protect your property. So these are moral, I would argue ethical, definitely legal requirements. So you have that right of the people. You are of the people to keep and bear arms, meaning carry. I have the right to carry that bang bang with me, on me, because this amendment says so. It doesn't say unless I have a permit. It doesn't say it has to be, it can't be concealed or it must be concealed. None of that is in here. And then the most important word of all, this shall not be infringed. All right. The right for you to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. So this is what really bothers me. To infringe is exactly what they've been doing with this incrementalism. If they just said, okay, everybody has to give up the bang bangs as of next Friday, it would just be mayhem. But they do this in an incremental way so that bit by bit you are conditioned to follow. And people that are younger, may be born, and now they're of age where they can get their gun or something. This doesn't even talk about what age. So the states have made all of these laws which limit, encroach, and undermine. And the word infringe is doesn't mean just to limit, but it specifically has the connotation, the definition, the meaning that it is limiting the rights or the freedom of another person. So it doesn't say that they shall not be limited, or they shall not be legislated, or that they shall not be constrained, or they shall not be undermined. It says they shall not be infringed, because infringed carries in the definition the fact that it has to do with your right. So I'm glad that I could clear that up. Gabby needs to go back to school. And yes, I'm using that name because that's also the name of Granny Gates' initiative for more people to become human pincushions. So that comes from the Library of Congress. You can look at it on your own. On Gabby Newsom's Twitter page, I grabbed a couple of these memes, which I think are great. It says, my favorite part of the Second Amendment is where we get to own the bang bangs and you get mad and you can't do anything about it. I think that's pretty concise. Here's another. The men who wrote the Second Amendment did not just finish a hunting trip. They just finished liberating a nation. This is huge because a lot of people will say, well, it means that you can keep the bang bangs to go hunting. I personally am not in favor of hunting, but there are those who do. And those that are trying to justify these limitations will say, well, they just meant that you can have it for hunting. Yeah, no. How about this? No matter how you feel about the bang bangs, you should educate yourself with the historical truths of disarmed populations. And I just gave you the rundown of that. And then this one I absolutely love. Hold on, guys. Let me check the gun laws first. All right, let me tell you exactly what happened. And this is a new law that the governor just signed, which doubles the taxes on the bang bangs and on ammunition. And then ostensibly it uses the money to pay for more security at the public prisons. The public schools masquerading as prisons, and various violence prevention programs. Now, there's nothing wrong with having violence prevention programs, but I'm not in favor of restricting your right in order to do so. We already have the highest taxes in the state of California, so I'm sure they can find the money somewhere, like get it out of the pockets of some of those that it's been lining. So the federal government already taxes the sale of bang bangs and ammunition at either 10 or 11%, depending on the type of bang bang. I thought that was interesting. I didn't know that. Get this, the law that Newsom signed adds another 11% tax. They love their number 11. Somebody told me that it has to do with the master builder in terms of those bricklayers. I'll have to do a deep dive on that for those of you that are interested in this secret society that politicians and firemen and policemen and entertainers, apparently, did I mention politicians, are often a part of. So another 11% tax on top of that, making California the only state with state taxes on the bang bangs and ammunition. How do you like them apples? Them are pretty rotten apples. So there are so many other things in California. And what happened is there also was a law that was passed in California reducing the number of the size of the magazine, which is how many what do they call them? Rounds can be put in as you're using your bang bang. And a federal circuit court, amazingly, in the 9th district, I imagine here in California, said that that was unconstitutional. And that's what Gabby was complaining about and I brought that to you at the beginning of this broadcast. So they're saying that taxing the bang bangs is how we interrupt the cycle of violence and how we stop the bang bang violence before it begins. Okay, I'm having difficulty connecting the clots on that one. There are so many other reasons why there is violence and crimes and criminals and that happening in society. I don't think I think it does have to do with taxes. I think it's because the taxes are so high. So there are so many restrictive measures in California, which according to the Second Amendment are completely unconstitutional. Let me show you in the state of Florida, just by comparison, since it appears that DeSantis, and I know that many of you are no fan of DeSantis. I'm just pointing this out because DeSantis and Newsom are going to be being the Rock'em Sock'em robots. That was an old kids game back in the day. And they're going to be having their debate because both of them, I predict, I know DeSantis is running, and I predict that Newsom is going to as well. So here's what we have in Florida. In Florida, you can just carry your bang bang. You need to have your valid ID. So driver's license, I suppose. Don't openly carry, meaning it needs to be concealed. If you're legally eligible, they do have a few things in terms of you can't be a criminal or ex-con or something. Learn where you can and can't carry your bang bang. So this happened just a couple of months ago in Florida. And then I looked up Texas. So Texas, a couple of years ago, again, just September 2021, made it legal for most people 21 or over to carry their bang bang in a holster without a permit, and they can carry it both openly or concealed. And then in California, I think I'm not sure if I did do a video on this previously where I compared the laws in Florida with the laws in California. They are so egregious in California. You have to apply for a permit from your sheriff in your county in order to carry the bang bang on you, and it has to be concealed. You have to go through classes. And again, some of you may be saying, this is great. You should need to know how to use it and all that. And in fact, I agree with you that I think it's a great idea that you should know how to use it, just like you should know how to drive a car or do other things if it can put other people at risk. But I draw the line at it infringing upon your right as enshrined in the Second Amendment. There's always common sense, there's common courtesy, and there's always going to be the criminals who are not going to follow either of those, any of those things. But in California, now my understanding is that even to get an appointment with the sheriff, you have to show cause. And this is one of the laws that I believe that a federal court, might have even been the Supreme Court, struck down and said, no, you don't have to prove that you have a need to carry the bang bang. You have a right to carry one. But in California, they've made it so onerous to do that you have to wait all of these months before you can even go to the sheriff, put in your application, pay all of this money, and it is going to deter some people, and they'll probably do it illegally. So I'm in favor of reducing the other social elements that drive up crime. For example, broken homes. For example, letting the criminals out of prison. Like in California, they emptied the prisons so that they could make room for people that were breathing oxygen. And I'm not joking. There were people that were going to jail because they were breathing oxygen, while hardened convicts were being let go in our communities because the governor ordered the sheriffs to do it under the guise of an emergency. Get this, because he didn't want those convicts to catch a cold in prison because they were too crowded. And he did it. He absolutely did it. That we were outraged. People were calling the sheriffs, and the sheriff's like, there's nothing I can do about this. So there are so many other ways of working at eliminating crime that has nothing to do with eliminating the weapons. It has to do with society. It has to do with having people actually stay in prison if they were rightly convicted of these crimes. And how about stop stealing all of our money that we're earning so that people actually have enough money and they don't need to steal from others and envy and covet what other people have? How about let people keep their money instead of robbing us on every paycheck so that we can't afford our food and our gas and our clothing and our homes and our insurance? How about reducing all of these onerous restrictions over insurance companies so that they're fleeing the state? And I could go on and on, friends. But the point of the video here was to talk about what's going on in California, and I'm predicting that this also is going to be having legal challenges. I promise you that there are already lawsuits being written up because it is unconstitutional to infringe upon those who wish to protect themselves under the Second Amendment, and then to be taxed. I think it's illegal to have the federal tax. And then on top of that, the state tax. You also have to have a permit in the state of California, even to buy the ammunition. So they're squeezing and suffocating at every turn. Now, the good news is that we are having some impact. and the judges, especially on the federal level, are ruling in accordance with the law. I'd like to continue to get your support and encouragement as I go forward with my legal action against the county for a writ of mandate for the court to simply declare that the county is required to follow a law that was written for the county to follow during an emergency. That's coming up second week of October. And I thank all of you that have partnered with me financially, prayerfully, just given emotional support and sharing my videos, sharing that information, because this declaratory judgment is of utmost importance for California and for our political form of government. I've got deep dives about that on my playlist about my lawsuit. And I want to thank all of you for being healthy Americans and for staying educated and connected and taking action. All right, friends, I'll be back with you tomorrow with another broadcast, and always over at thehealthyamerican.org. Please get on my free Substack. That's a great way that I can keep in touch with you. If something happens on this channel, you can always find me on my backup channel on YouTube called Living Swell with Peggy Hall. And yes, I am on Rumble, BitChute, Brighteon as backup channels, and my private platform, ad-free, peggyhall.tv. All right. See you soon, everybody.